Hi, I'm Dr. Thomas Armstrong, and this is video number 13 in my video series based on my book, The Power of the Adolescent Brain, Strategies for Teaching Middle and High School Students, published by ASCD. As part of this series, we've been looking at 8 adolescent brain-friendly practices that middle and high school teachers can implement in the classroom, which are in line with recent research concerning how the adolescent brain develops. In this video, we're going to turn this around a bit, and instead of learning about best practices, we're going to look at 8 worst practices, or what I'd like to call adolescent brain hostile practices that fail to take into consideration the requirements of the adolescent brain and may even act against those needs. The first adolescent brain-friendly practice that we looked at in this series was giving teens opportunities to make choices. So the opposite of that would obviously be not giving teens the opportunity to make choices. We see this happening in the tendency of educational institutions from the federal and state level down to the district and school level to emphasize college and career readiness, and as a part of this, to establish a fixed set of required courses that all students must complete. The emphasis on getting ready for college and career weighs down students with course requirements that may not be tied to their own interests, strengths, and abilities. And more importantly, for our purposes, students are given little to no choice in the matter. In many cases, students are prevented from taking electives because of the heavy load of required courses. Thus, goes unrecognized and unfulfilled the need for teens to make choices in school so that they'll have practice in this important function when engaged with activities outside of school. In our video series, we looked at the importance of giving highly self-conscious middle and high school students activities that help them explore their personal identities. One specific school practice that violates students' need to sensitively explore their own identities is the practice of posting school grades and/or test scores on bulletin boards in the classroom or out in the hallways. This worst practice violates the privacy of students. Rather than creating activities that carefully provide teens with a safe way to construct a coherent sense of self, this practice comes in with a wrecking ball and exposes students' academic performance for all the world to see, humiliating students in the process, accentuating their already acute sense of self-consciousness, and shaming them in front of their valued peers. The third adolescent brain-friendly practice that we looked at in this video series was establishing positive peer learning connections in classroom activities. One educational practice that goes against this important need for teens to learn in conjunction with their peers is the banning of cell phones and thus banning the use of social media in the class. Advocates for this brain-hostile practice believe that they are preventing teens from being on their phones and off task while a lesson is going on, or even, heaven forbid, that they're texting each other within the class. However, there are many apps on mobile phones that have educational applications, and the use of social networking channels such as Twitter can be used in a variety of ways, including doing student polling and having students share written work and projects they've created while receiving feedback from their peers on those assignments. The problem of off-task online behavior can be dealt with simply by telling students that when not being used for in-class educational activities, their phones are to be placed face down in a corner of their desk where the teacher can see them. The fourth adolescent brain-friendly practice we looked at in this video series was the need to use affective learning in the classroom, that is, teaching through the emotions. This practice clashes with what is all too often an ever-present reality for millions of middle and high school students, an emotionally flat classroom. I'd like to call this the Ben Stein classroom, from his famous role as a boring teacher in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. In a Ben Stein classroom, the teacher drones on without affect, leaving students unengaged, alienated, resentful, and in some cases, fast asleep. The fifth best practice or adolescent brain-friendly intervention that we covered in this video series is to engage students physically in their learning process. Unfortunately, many administrators have done just the reverse and cut back recess, PE classes, and exercise breaks to make time for more academic learning to raise standardized test scores. A study by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention revealed that only 2% of U.S. high schools required physical activity breaks in addition to PE, and only 11.7% recommended this practice for all students. In middle schools, the numbers were only slightly higher, with 10.8% requiring physical activity breaks and 23% recommending the practice. The sixth adolescent brain-friendly practice we looked at in our video series was the need for metacognitive learning at the middle and high school level, essentially helping students learn how to think and how to think about their thinking. This contrasts with what is too often the case in many middle and high schools, and that is instruction based on content that is delivered through lectures and textbooks and assessed through standardized testing. In this sort of learning environment, the student becomes, in a sense, a regurgitation machine instead of a thoughtful learner who is learning about how to use their mind to learn. The seventh brain-friendly practice for middle and high school education consists of expressive arts activities, including the use of visual arts, music, drama, and multimedia production. Most people, however, will not be surprised when I say that if there's a budget crunch at a school district, music, art, and drama are often the first programs to be cut. While most secondary schools do offer music and visual arts courses, only 12% offer dance and less than half offer drama. Virtually all programs are graded, which from the standpoint of creativity research represents a perfect way to blunt or suppress creativity, not support it. And most importantly, art and other expressive arts are generally not integrated into academic coursework. The final adolescent brain-friendly strategy we looked at earlier in this video series was the need for teens to have real-world experiences. All too often, however, students are confined within classroom spaces that are artificial and not conducive to active learning. These spaces bear little resemblance to the world that lies outside the classroom walls. Instead, teens long for real-life experience, and as their brains mature, they become more and more capable of functioning within these environments. Consequently, offering students the opportunity to get involved with job shadowing, internships, apprenticeships, service learning, career academies, entrepreneurial learning, and other forms of real-life activity prepares students to be independent learners once they become adults. If you'd like more information about adolescent brain hostile practices at the middle and high school level, or want to know more about the 8 practices that are adolescent brain friendly, get my book, The Power of the Adolescent Brain, available through Amazon or other online sources, including the publisher ASCD. You can also find the other videos in this series by going to my blog on my website or to YouTube. For more information about my work, go to my website, www.institute4learning.com, or contact me at thomas@instituteforlearning.com. Thanks so much for your attention. I hope this information helps you appreciate the need to reform many of the practices that middle and high schools have been doing over the past 50 years, so that teaching and learning aligns with what we now know to be true about how the adolescent brain develops.